NASCAR just cleared Shane van Gisbergen of everything, then secretly called him to the hauler anyway. Sit with that for a second, because on paper those two things shouldn't both be true. You don't clear a driver of wrongdoing and then quietly pull him aside for a private chat. Unless, of course, cleared doesn't actually mean what NASCAR wants you to think it means. And mate, once you dig into this one, that's exactly what it looks like. Stick with us, because this one's got more layers than most people realize. Here's the thing about SVG, right? He's not your typical oval-raised, short-track-bred NASCAR veteran. He's a road course specialist who plays the game on instinct, not on the unwritten rulebook that oval guys have had drilled into them their whole careers. And NASCAR, fair dinkum, still doesn't quite know how to officiate him. So what you get is this strange middle ground. Punished without being officially punished. Warned without a warning on paper. And that leaves SVG in a genuinely rough spot. Because if NASCAR itself can't decide whether Chicagoland was a crime, how's SVG supposed to know where the line actually is before Atlanta? That's not a small problem. That's the kind of uncertainty that follows a driver into every single restart for weeks, second-guessing every block, every bump, every inch of space he takes on track. And when a driver starts second-guessing himself mid-race, that's when mistakes actually happen. Now let's get under the bonnet of what NASCAR actually reviewed, because this bit matters more than people realize. NASCAR pulled in-car camera footage, telemetry data, and radio comms from the Chicagoland contact between SVG and Austin Hill. What they were hunting for was proof the contact was, in their own language, 100% intentional and penalty-worthy. That's the actual bar they need to clear. Not, look deliberate on the broadcast. Not, fans were furious about it. Not even, it's happened before. 100%, provable intent, full stop, no wiggle room. And here's what most casual viewers don't realize. Review teams miss that bar constantly, even when contact looks completely obvious in slow motion. Because intent is brutally hard to prove from data alone. A wheel can turn half an inch too early and look identical to a wheel turned on purpose. Telemetry can show speed and steering angle, but it can't show what was going through a driver's head in that split second. Translation: NASCAR can watch the exact same replay you did, frame by frame, and still not be able to say, with certainty, that it was on purpose. That's the gap SVG slipped through. Not because he's innocent, not because he's guilty, because the rulebook itself has a hole in it, and everyone in the garage knows it, from the crew chiefs right up to race control. Before we get into what NASCAR's actually worried about behind closed doors, quick pause here. This is NASCAR Trackline TV, and we're closing in fast on 500 subscribers, which honestly feels like a big deal for a channel our size. If you want the real breakdown instead of the surface-level takes other channels are giving you, hitting subscribe genuinely helps us get there, and it costs you nothing but a tap. Right, back to the story, because it's about to get interesting. The reaction to this so-called non-penalty was instant. Denny Hamlin responded publicly with visible confusion at the ruling, and that's telling. When a veteran insider looks at a call like this and reacts with confusion instead of agreement, something didn't add up for him either. NASCAR's own communications team framed the hauler meeting as a way to make sure the situation doesn't boil over into a significant problem at Atlanta or beyond. Meanwhile, across the media and the fan base, the phrase getting thrown around is a confusing precedent, a ruling nobody quite knows how to apply the next time something like this happens on track. And it's not just casual fans grumbling in the comments either. Broadcasters who've covered this sport for decades are asking the same question on air. Confusion from a veteran. Careful, deliberate language from NASCAR itself. Backlash from everyone watching at home, whether they were Team SVG or Team Hill. That's not three separate stories, mate. That's one story building on itself, layer by layer, each one making the next one worse, and each one adding pressure on NASCAR to actually clarify where the line is before someone crosses it again. But here's the part NASCAR isn't saying out loud, and it has everything to do with what happens if this rivalry follows them to Atlanta. Hold on to that thought, because we're coming straight back to it, and it's bigger than most people expect. See, that hauler meeting was never really about Chicagoland. Chicagoland is done. Over. Old news by the time you're watching this. What that meeting was actually about is stopping a repeat incident at Atlanta, a track where contact history has a nasty habit of compounding, race after race, until it stops being a rivalry and starts becoming a pattern nobody can control. And that changes the stakes completely. This isn't a one-race grudge anymore. If SVG and Hill carry this into a multi-week feud, that's playoff positioning on the line for both teams involved, not just bragging rights. One bad restart at Atlanta, and this stops being a storyline and starts being a real problem for both camps' championship hopes. And remember what we said earlier about NASCAR clearing him but calling him in anyway? Here's why that matters now. A quiet hauler warning is a penalty NASCAR doesn't have to put on paper. No points hit, no suspension, no fine anyone can point to. Just reputational risk and the unspoken message that they're watching closely, race by race. That's the real play here. Discipline without the paperwork trail, and honestly, it might be more effective than an actual penalty would have been. So where does this actually go from here? We see three realistic paths. 1. NASCAR privately leans on both drivers. The temperature drops, and this whole thing cools off before Atlanta even happens, fading into just another mid-season storyline. 2. It doesn't cool off at all. It boils over anyway, and NASCAR gets forced into a real, on-record penalty the next time these two make contact, which would set a precedent of its own. 3. SVG plays it completely clean in public, but the tension never actually dies. It just goes underground and simmers for the rest of the season, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Now, has NASCAR officially confirmed any of this? No. None of it is on the record, and it likely never will be. That's just how this sport handles things behind the scenes. But based on how they've handled everything so far, the way they moved fast, quiet, and deliberately, we'd bet on one of those three paths. And we don't think it's the quiet one. So here's what we want to know from you. Type send it if you think NASCAR should have penalized this outright and let the SVG Hill rivalry play out for real, consequences and all. Type back off if you think NASCAR made the right call keeping it quiet before Atlanta turns it into something much bigger than it needs to be. Drop your pick in the comments, and if you've got your own theory on where this goes next, put that down too, because we genuinely read every single one and reply where we can. This community's grown fast because of comment sections just like this one, so don't be shy about it. And if you think Chicagoland was bad, wait until you see what's brewing between SVG and Hendrick before Atlanta even gets here, because that story's about to get a lot bigger and a lot messier. If this video helped you actually understand what's going on, instead of just the headline version, do us a favor. Like it, comment your pick below, and share it with a fellow NASCAR fan who's been arguing about this ruling all week without knowing the full story. Every share genuinely helps a small channel like this one grow, and it means more videos like this one keep coming. If you enjoy real NASCAR breakdowns like this, you'll like what's coming next.